Since no Book of Mormon archaeology has ever been found in Central South America, a new theory called the Heartland Model Geography is now being promulgated unofficially in the LDS Church. It suggests that rather than a Central or South America landing by Lehi's group, the Book of Mormon account took place in North America in eastern Tennessee and spread from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. Rod L. Meldrum and Bruce H. Porter favor this location because it appears logical since, from their LDS perspective, it is the area where 1. The Pilgrims came, 2. The supposed gold plates were dug up, 3. The New Jerusalem will be built, and 4. The area was occupied by the Hopewell Indians, in which DNA studies placed them under a different genetic category, Mediterranean, than the other indigenous people of the Americas, Mongoloid. See endnote number 1. The majority of Mormons still believe in the connection of the Nephites, Lamanites, and Jaredites to the Mesoamerican ruins, but a growing number are adopting the Heartland Model geography. Conclusion. Were the Nephites really white? Lehi's group, if it existed at all, could not have been white, nor have had gold-colored, blonde hair, or blue or green eyes. Why? The ancient Semite Hebrews, having relations with their neighbors, the Phoenicians, Canaanites, and Syrians, often intermarried, keeping the dark type of skin prevalent. Although centuries later, especially after the diaspora, Hebrews spread throughout the world and undoubtedly, over time, intermarried with those of other races with fairer complexions. Today, there are blonde, blue-eyed Jews, but in Lehi's time, this would not have been the case, especially considering he was devout in his Old Testament faith and would have kept the line as pure as he could by not marrying outside of his race. His family's dark Mediterranean complexion would not produce the Nordic kind of fair coloring found in the white Indians of Darien. Thus, the white Amazonian Indians do not prove the Book of Mormon is true. While there is no question that they were indeed throwbacks to some white race, they certainly were not Hebrew. Their fair-colored features were closer to Nordic, and the results of experts who studied the Darien Indians' ethnology and language concluded that their Thule language had a Sanskrit or Aryan structure, not Mongoloid like the Aborigines of the Americas. Plus, they found over 60 words identical with early Norse, not Hebrew. All in all, there have been no archaeological finds in Mesoamerica or anywhere in the Americas that corroborate anything in the Book of Mormon. What's coming up next on this subject? In my next blog, Part 2, we will take a look at the White Guanche Indians, the 3000 BC settlers of the Canary Islands, also the White Indians of Polynesia, 200 through 500 AD, and Easter Island, 500 through 1200 AD. With their famous red-headed, monolithic statues, although these islands are not in the Americas, there is a significant connection you won't want to miss. Until next time, Janis. Endnotes are below. Thank you for visiting. The next post will be in approximately 1 month. If you enjoyed this article, please click the share buttons to leave a comment. Scroll down to the bottom. Endnotes. 1. The New Theory on Book of Mormon Geography, the Heartland Model and the Hopewell Culture by Rod L. Meldrum. Promoted by Mormons, Rod Meldrum, lecturer and host of pro-Mormon websites, and Bruce H. Porter, Ph.D. in History of Religions. It has gained its acceptance by some members, but the majority of members still cling to the Mesoamerican location, and church headquarters leaders only saying the geography is in the Western Hemisphere. Enthusiasts of this view now disregard Central and South America altogether. In the face of overwhelming archaeological evidence proving there were no Nephites in Central or South America, the Heartland Model provides an out for the church so it can bypass the Mesoamerican location theory and still maintain the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. The theory, of course, is a last-ditch effort to save the veracity of the Book of Mormon. Many criticize Meldrum's theory and the books and articles he's written, as Gregory L. Smith does in A Farm Review. Often in error, seldom in doubt, Rod Meldrum and Book of Mormon DNA. His review, as well as comments of others, state that 1. There are no geneticists who back up Meldrum's DNA theory. 2. BYU's Neil A. Maxwell Institute claims his work is inaccurate. 3. Meldrum makes claims without supporting documentation, and those that have citations are lacking in page numbers, so no one can check them out. Nevertheless, it is a fascinating theory. Here it is. The Heartland Model. The events in the Book of Mormon did not take place in Central South America, but in North America, near the southern foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in eastern Tennessee, east of the Mississippi River from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. Rediscovering the Book of Mormon Remnant through DNA by Rod L. Meldrum, 2009. The confirming satisfaction is the thought that we're better than in the Promised Land where God led the pilgrims. The gold plates were dug up and where the New Jerusalem will be built in the last days. Book of Mormon Geography Stirring Controversy by Kristen Moulton, March 26, 2010 at The Hopewell Culture DNA. Meldrum, in his article Rediscovering the Book of Mormon, Remnant through DNA, states that after admitting there is simply no genetic evidence in Mesoamerica in support of the claims of the Book of Mormon, but rather only Asian-based bloodlines, the latter discussed in Part 3. This pushes one to seek another geography for the Book of Mormon that is more limited to a specific area rather than being hemispheric. Meldrum claims the following. DNA studies conducted in Native American populations were categorized into 4 primary haplogroups, identified as A, B, C, and D. These 4 groups corresponded to native populations in Asia, bearing out the Bering Strait land bridge theory, discussed in Part 3. There was, however, a haplogroup X unrelated to A, B, C, and D that researchers had to identify as other. For the indigenous people in all 3 Americas, it only occurs at a frequency of about 3%, but it is bigger in northern North America. A few Mormon scholars, knowing that DNA studies had shown that the Book of Mormon characters weren't from Asia, jumped on this. Meldrum focused on the Hopewell culture, a non-Indian mound-building culture that existed 12,000 years ago. 1825 to 1625 BP, which correlates to 183 AD and 383 AD, respectively. 1,200 years ago, respectively. The more advanced Hopewells were between 300 and 200 BC. They abruptly ended between 400 and 500 AD. It was not a single culture or society, but a set of related populations with a common network of trade routes. It consisted of 7 unrelated language groups that bore no evidence as being from Asia, instead European, and way before European exploration and Nordics came to North America. However, mound complexes have been found dating to 3500 BC and in other parts of North America 4000 BC. Meldrum, in stating his case for a Book of Mormon correlation, chose the 200 BC through 500 AD population because the higher advanced existence of the Hopewells was between 300 and 200 BC. Meldrum says, this corresponds closely to the time frames recorded in the Book of Mormon, with the exception that the Book of Mormon history began in the Americas somewhat earlier, 601 BC. Rediscovering the Book of Mormon Remnant through DNA by Rod L. Meldrum, 2009, (mine). We will continue in the next part.